when things were tough, and I can remember this when I was about 10 or 12 years old. No, I'd be about 10. We used to go and get bones from the butcher shop to take down to the poor devils. We used to call them tramps, but they weren't tramps. They were very educated people. And some had huts. They built, one had built an apparatus hooked up to a saw, so the saw would cut all the wood he needed for the wintertime. And we used to take food down to him to help him out and give him a big bone. You get the bones free then, and they'd make soup out of it and stuff like that. There was about 5 of us in the group, and we did a lot of good things and a lot of bad things. Yeah. Pushing down outhouses and things like that.
If you went at 9 o'clock at night, you could get in for 5 cents because everybody else was there at 6 or 7. So you could get in and see the main movie for 5 cents. Just up the street from us there was a movie, and my boss would let me leave a few minutes early, and I'd go up there and go to the movie. It was up beyond the south side near Broadview Avenue. I had 8 sisters. I didn't need a girlfriend. I had enough trouble. I was running a machine, folding paper, folding the magazine and so on, and I got a telephone call. You go home, put your army uniform on, put a kit together, and come down to the armories right now. I said, well, what about my job? We'll talk to your boss. So I left my machine, went home and got dressed, went right down the armories, and I would say about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I believe it was 2 weeks before war started, we were on guard at the Welland Canal.
I've always been nuts about airplanes. I've followed that ever since I could afford a pulp magazine. I used to read a magazine called Bill Barnes, and it was quite an exciting book. They described aerial battles and learned a lot of movements from that book. I didn't want to join the army, and sooner or later, if you don't volunteer for something, you're going to be volunteered. We graduated in April. Normally it was June, but because of the war, I figure they said, well, you guys are free to go. I joined the Air Force because it was what I wanted. I wanted to fly. I wanted to be a pilot. And it was great, no problem. Joined up, signed on the dotted line, signed the mortgage, and that was in June 1942. And then the 3rd of August, I reported to Manning Depot, which was the exhibition grounds in the Coliseum, the bullpen. But you got $1.30 a day. So we were rich beyond belief. The only thing is, every time you wore your khaki uniform, we generally went out marching, and it would be soaking wet, and it would cost 50 cents to get it cleaned.
There was a feeling of togetherness that was wonderful in the everybody was in the same, to do what they could to win the war, Sounds so crude, but you know what I'm talking about.
Driving. Yes, we were on call, and it was more serious there naturally because the bombs were going, and especially if we had to do most of our convoying at night because of the troops, the enemy, and we had a little light this size, the back of each vehicle, mostly trucks, and that's what we followed. We didn't have headlights. We couldn't put the headlights on. We just followed this little red light. And apparently, the enemy couldn't see the red as easily as they could white. So they put the little red light, and we followed that in convoy. We were moving troops from one way or another. So we didn't go past the porch, we just, wherever they were, assigned to.
Well, everyone was posted, but because of my singing, I was posted to headquarters because I guess they thought it would be handy to have a singer for something or other. And then this Air Commodore died and his funeral was in Ottawa. So they were sending this special plane for me to go sing at the funeral. And who should be on the plane when I got to my plane but this guy, Douglas. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I told them I was your accompanist and that you would need me in Ottawa to rehearse before the funeral." And I said, okay. And that was all he was brought to the station to do. He was a nuisance, an absolute nuisance. He wouldn't leave me alone. But all he was brought to the station was to play the piano. And he was that good. And the rest of the time, he just hung around my office. I wasn't the least bit interested in him. Oh, and I also had to be in charge of sending out letters of condolence. Each one had to be typed. You can't send out a copy to someone who's lost a son, It has to be a typewritten letter. So I had an awful lot of those to do. And sometimes I even had every typist on the station working. There were that many casualties. So it was really wartime. People were dying and their parents were getting these letters, these telegrams. But when those flimsy copies came of the telegrams, I had leafed through them. My first job was to leaf through them to see if my parents got one, because my two brothers were in the thick of everything. And so that was kind of hard.